if one considers the genealogies mentioned in our Parshat Noach, and also based on what is written later in Parshat Lech Lecha, it comes out that Avraham left his father Terach before Terach died. Yet the last verse in our Parsha is, and Terach died in Haran. And the next Parsha starts with the command that Hashem tells Avraham, go from your land, from your father's house, etc., right, to the land that I'll show you. Right? That's when, if you could say, the first Jew in some sense, right? The word Jew is a later word based on Judah, Yehudi, but the first Ivri, the first, Ivri may have actually meant a lot of different things in those times, not necessarily what we call Hebrew today, but the founder of our nation, when he moved from Syria, from Haran to the land of Israel, right? It says that he was 75 years old. By the way, there are some midrashim that he actually started when he was 70 and then came back, but I'm not going to go into this right now. It has to do with a different question of chronology of the Brit Ben Abitarim in the next parsha. But at any rate, he was actually, at least according to the simple, right, pshat of the chronology, he left his father's house when his father was still alive. So why does the Torah mention the death of Terach and only then the command to go? The simple reason seems to be as follows. Of course, we know that in general Torah is not always chronological, and our sages talk about it. But Ramban and the Gra, the Vilna Gaon, both understood that the Torah is not just going to mention things in non-chronological order without telling us, unless there are specific reasons for it. So one of the main reasons why we find a lot of times, like in this parsha, that an event that happened later is mentioned earlier, is because the Torah wants to finish with something. So the previous topic, all the generations before Avraham, the Torah wants to be done with it. So it says that Terach died in Haran. So we don't assume that maybe Terach also moved with Avraham, or maybe Terach later joined Avraham. Who knows what would have assumed. The Torah wants to finish with this whole family. Terach died in Haran, that's it. And then it starts already from Parshat Lech Lecha. We only read about Avraham and his story. After that, all of the Torah's concentration will be on Avraham and his descendants. Right? The Torah is written for the Jewish people. It's only discussing our family. So the first two Parshiot were general, but the end of Parshat Noach is about the end of the family of Terach, how he died in Haran. And now we learn about all of what happened to Avraham. That's the simple understanding. Yet there is a midrash, and the general midrashic understanding, that seems to imply the following: that the Torah doesn't really want the impression to be, even though if you calculate the years, you'll know that Avram left while his father was still alive. But the Torah doesn't want to emphasize it, kind of. And the reason being that generally the son is supposed to respect his father, right? And an elderly father usually needs help from children. Today we have all kinds of social programs for old people, but in ancient times, generally the old people relied only on their children. They were their social security. So the fact that Avram left Terach while Terach was still alive, he had to do it. Hashem told him to do it. It's still a mitzvah. He had no choice. Avram, in fact, maybe would have been influenced badly by his family and the idolatry that existed there. So everything that Avram did is correct. And still the impression, a kind of bitter taste you might feel that, this son didn't respect his father. He left him at the old age and went to a different land. So therefore the Torah doesn't want to make this emphasis, kind of, and it says, Vayama Terach b'Haran. Terach died in Haran. And then it says how Avram left. So of course you will know if you calculate the years, but it's not as emphasized in order that we don't feel, we don't kind of don't overly notice it that Avram left his elderly father. So there is a midrash that Hashem kind of patered, absolved him from the honoring of the father. Avram had really great things in front of him. He had to do great things. He had to do it in the land of Israel, which was specifically predetermined for our people. The Canaanites had it temporarily. They were holding the land, they were holding the language. It's interesting, Canaanites spoke the Hebrew language, as I mentioned in a different lesson. And Avram's family came from Syria speaking Aramaic. The Khatam Sofer understood that for secular things, Avram would continue speaking within the family only in Aramaic language. But for holy things, he would use the holy tongue, what we call Lashon HaKodesh, the tongue of holiness, the Hebrew language. So he used it only for holy things, according to Khatam Sofer. I'm not sure if this was really true. I mean, it does describe the situation of much later times when the Jewish people, generally, Hebrew was never lost to us. We always used Hebrew for prayers, for reading the Torah, and since every Jew is obligated to learn Torah, so there were very few Jews who didn't know any Hebrew at all. But the main language would usually be language of the land. So, for example, the Jews in Ashkenazic lands usually spoke Yiddish, and in certain other countries there used to be a French version for the Jewish people, a Jewish French, Jewish Italian, Ladino is Jewish Spanish. There was a Jewish Arabic in Arabic lands, and all kinds of other languages. There were basically a dialect. For instance, Bukharian Jews still speak an ancient Tajik with some Jewish words similar to Yiddish that's based on German. They have an ancient Tajik language that's based, the language is based on Tajik, but with Hebrew, some specific Hebrew terms, and they write it. Of course, all of these groups of Jews, they wrote their language with Hebrew letters. So Yiddish, Bukharian language, and all these other languages, they all write with Hebrew letters the language of the country they're in. But the Hebrew language was never lost to us. When people say it was dead language, it's incorrect. Latin may be a dead language, just because the Catholics pray in the church that way. Most Catholics probably don't understand except the priests. But the Jews, they all understood Hebrew, and at least the vast majority. And that's why the Jews from different countries sometimes had to communicate in Hebrew. And all the writings were always in Hebrew. So all the rabbis always wrote in Hebrew. Very few books were in Yiddish or in other languages. Practically all the books of Jewish law and commentaries to the Torah and everything else, 99% of the books were written in Hebrew. So Hebrew was never dead in that respect. It just didn't have modern words. So when Avram left his father's house in Haran, he definitely had great things to accomplish, to move to the land which Hashem gave him, to start. I'm not sure if Avram knew any Hebrew before that, but certainly when he moved to the land of Canaan, he would be speaking, at least for holy things, he would be speaking Hebrew according to Khatam Sofer. Maybe he spoke even for secular things. I mean, what was secular for Avram? Maybe in Avram's life everything was holy. Whatever the case may be, Hebrew and language, Hebrew land, everything was important that Avram would move there. He wouldn't be able to accomplish all that if he stayed in his father's house in Syria. But with all that, since some kind of a bitter taste remains, if the Torah would emphasize that he left his elderly father, therefore it first mentions the death of Terach and only of Terach, and only then goes on with Avram leaving his ancestors' home. And on this I'm gonna end. If you like this video, please press like and please subscribe to our channel.